Hello, this is Sammy from the Guild Clarity on JadeNREU, and welcome to the third video in my series about WorldofLogs. In this video I'm going to talk about time periods and why that's an extremely important tool to look at. This allows you to see what's going on at a certain time period during the fight. So to show you what I mean, I'm going to go to our logs from last night. I'm going to go to Spine Heroic, and combining what I'm about to show you with what we learned in the last video, that allows us to see who did what damage to a specific tendon opening. In this case we're going to use the first one because on Spine Heroic nowadays we do the first tendon in one exposure with Bloodlust, just to make the fight easier and shorter, and it allows us to bring less healers, we found. So if we look at this graph along here, WorldofLogs automatically puts graphs of the top 3 damage and the total, which obviously isn't really that useful for this. So if we look along here, this shows us events throughout the fight. So the blue highlighted area is where we have a Bloodlust, or 2 Bloodlusts as the case may be. Then we see deaths and resurrects along here. So if we want to look at a certain time period, you need to try and acquaint yourself with where things happened. So along here you have the times. So I mean, a lot of the time you can just guess. For example, if you know that something's near the start of the fight, you can guess. Or if you know that it's in a Bloodlust, you can just look at the Bloodlust, or if you know it's just after or just before the Bloodlust. You just need to have things to orient yourselves in the fight. Another thing you can use for that is if we head into Analyze and select something. So if I just select tendons, you see on this graph that people did damage to tendons in these times. So this shows us that it was at 2146 to about 2146, maybe 40 seconds. So that allows us to see that. So if we go back to damage done, remembering that, obviously that coincides with the Bloodlust because that's when we use the Bloodlust, then all I have to do is click and drag and draw a box over it, and then I right click on the box and I can set page to selection. And what that does is now you see we're down to active time 53 seconds. So now I'm on a 53-second time period which contains our Bloodlust. And in here, now that we're more zoomed in, we can see these little blue lines which tell us when certain mobs die. So here I see Burning Tendons dies. So that's the time period that I want specifically. So if I draw another box here, set page to selection again, I now have a 20.7 second period, which is basically just the tendon phase. So now if I go to Analyze Damage Done, which we saw in the last video, Burning Tendons, this shows me this is only the damage done to the first tendon exposure of the fight, which is obviously very important for us to see because we are burning it down in one go. So we want to see that people are doing what they're capable of. And this, so this, using these two simple tools, suddenly we've got some information that's really, really useful and very important for us to see. We can see that our 2 legendary rogues are up at the top. Our 3rd legendary rogue, I think he had a freeze up during this phase because his computer is bad. You can see the active time is down, presumably because, of his freeze up. And you can see the other things. So what certain classes used, what spells they used during this time period. So we can also use this time period to see what buffs people gained. So if I go back to damage done, so if I click on myself and see buffs gained, I can see, for example, how many killing machine procs I had in that time, whether or not I used my cooldown, which I did, whether or not I used a potion, which I did, and that's important things for a raid leader to see. They're also very important to see if you're looking at someone else's logs to see how you can try and improve. You can see what they did differently to you during a certain time period of the fight. So this is the example for damage done. If we can now go and look at an example where healers are put under some stress. So if we go to Warlords Honors and go to healing done, we can try and work out where the first black phase is. And from this graph, I would speculate that this is the black phase, based on the fact that there's a large spike in healing done. I can obviously check that by, if I go into damage taken, you can really see it there. That's the damage taken black phase. So if I draw a box around that, set page to selection, I can see this is still the damage taken, but the key is I've already set the time period. So setting the time period, you can use any reference point to make sure that you get the right time period, and then you can switch between healing done, damage done to really see what people have done. So you can see we were 5 healing this fight today, and you can see who sort of had harder assignments maybe in the phase and who put out more healing. Within this, you can also go to analyze healing done, and I can see who healed any one target. So we saw that Triel was taking a lot of damage as the main tank, and I can see that virtually a large portion of his healing was coming from Hydrogen's Beacon of Light and himself and Todd Krieger's Hots. Similarly, if we look over at Dukia, you can see that Hydrogen and Bangles healed him. And it's very important as a raid leader to check that people are following their assignments, because sometimes in a fight you'll assign everything and in your head it's working in a certain way, and then it seems to work, but then later on it stops working and it breaks down and you're not sure why, and it's because people weren't exactly following their assignments, but they found another way to make it work which wasn't optimal and then didn't stand up under a certain condition. So these are the kind of things that as a raid leader I find that I can get a lot of useful information out of these, to see whether people are healing the right things. For example, from my memory, I'm pretty sure Dukia was assigned to a spot that Bangles would have been healing him, but not Hydrogen, so maybe he moved into a different spot during the phase, I'm not sure, but that's something that I can look at later and find out. Similarly, we can see that Dogmage didn't get any healing and died, and I'm not sure why that is, so that's another thing that I would look at. So quite easily I can head into here and click deaths and see by clicking more. You see just how powerful WorldofLogs is. Just by a few clicks I've got an awful lot of information. So here I can see this is 10 seconds before he died, looking at the seconds here, and I can see that what he's doing damage to. I can see that he uses his health stone, good, the mark of a good player. I can see that he's constantly taking damage, but he is getting no heals, so I can only assume from that he was stood in the wrong place. Otherwise, his healer would have been healing him. So that was how we look at time periods within the fight. Very, very important as a raid leader to see what's going on in certain parts of the fight. Okay, well, thanks for watching, and as always, if you have any questions, drop me a PM or leave a comment on this video, and I will always get back to you. See you next time.